of accessibility issues in our facilities around campus, and a lot of them we can't do anything about. Some entrances, this is that same entrance by the way, are accessible. So we have the steps and we have the ramp. But here again, that approach, which is done fairly attractively, and it was done later, it was after the building was built, so I'm not complaining about that approach at all. Sometimes that's the best approach in a given situation. But it isolates people. When you think about it, how many people, walking people, do you see go up that ramp when it's off to the side like that? And what happens when a person in a wheelchair comes up and they're walking along with his fellow student who walks? What tends to happen is the walking person walks up the stairs and then the one using the wheelchair goes the other way around. So they're isolated. This is an example of a door, like in a grocery store or whatever, where the door opens for anybody. It doesn't. You don't have to push that button, and so it's more universally designed. You might think, well, there really isn't much I can do about making my entrance accessible. Here's one at the campus where it's just a sloping entrance. I don't think most people look at it and say, oh, they universally designed this, but they really did, probably by accident. But anyway, people with wheelchairs can use it, and other people as well. No steps. And you can think, well, there really isn't much I can do about that because my facility has steps. Well, I had a facility a couple years ago, and the main entrance had a couple of steps down to it, actually. And then way off on the side, it had a ramp. And so it took a lot of effort, and people were not real happy with the idea. But I insisted that we change the entrance. We just simply put the entrance sign on the ramp entrance, put some signs up so people could find it, and then put a sign on the other door. We just locked it and said the entrance this way. So that was an example how you could make some changes in a facility without physical plans or someone having to do it for you. And then fixtures, furniture, controls on equipment, operate from different heights, different sensory and physical abilities necessary to operate the equipment, adjustable, standardized, adaptable lab equipment, instructional products. There are a lot of products like braille, rulers, and a video camera connected to a microscope, magnifier, large print calculator, things like that to think about. One thing that in an employment setting that's very helpful, and we do it in our office, is having self-adjustable lighting. And in student areas and stuff, sometimes that's helpful too. So if the student needs extra lighting or whatever, they can adjust it themselves. Labeling things with clear, large print labels. We have a service counter that has 2 heights. That's a very easy thing to do. It wasn't that way when we bought it, but we had someone come in, basically chop one part down, move the counter down for us. So you can easily come up in a seated position or a standing position. And that, by the way, even is nice as far as the appearance of the facility, because it's welcoming. It's suggesting that if you're very short in stature, very tall, or using a wheelchair, or whatever, you're welcome here. Adjustable and mobile furniture in the new facility that we're moving into. We don't have adjustable office furniture. And one of my staff members said, well, do we need to worry about this? I said, well, we don't currently have a need for the employees in those offices to have adjustable furniture, but we will need to make adjustments if we have an employee that we hire that way. But what we're focusing on is the visitors to come to our facility, because the students we work with, their parents, other visitors who come, have all different types of disabilities and different nationalities for that matter as well. So we need to make sure that for visitors we're fully accessible, and then somewhat accessible for our employees, but then be ready to respond quickly if we need to make the facility more accessible. The other thing is furniture that allows flexible grouping. Sometimes in our auditoriums, everything's stuck to the floor, and you can't form a group. And people with certain types of disabilities might not be able to be part of just about any group. So if you're a part of a committee to design an instructional facility, try to keep things flexible as much as possible. Mirrors above demonstrations, sound-activated lights, all sorts of different things. Thinking about accessible shelving, and here's a picture of a library. It's not fancy, but a simple thing we did for the computer access workstations. If you notice, they wanted them to be kind of high, like on a stool, but we provided one that was lower so that someone could operate it from a wheelchair position. That's an easy thing to do with furniture. And there are all kinds of products. I like this one, left and right-handed scissors. And then thinking about safety, minimizing the risk of injury by keeping space uncluttered, non-skid walking surfaces. We are talking about emergency systems with visual and auditory warnings, and clear and large print emergency signs. This emergency sign always makes me wonder. You see them all over the place, but in case of fire, do not use elevator, use stairs. And then of course when you get to the elevator, it says, don't use the elevator in case of a fire, okay? So you got signs both places. So what is a person who can't use the stairs supposed to do? The only answer I have to that, and is what we've done when we're in facilities where this is the case, is meet with your people from your fire department and your risk management on your campus and whatever. Come up with some kind of evacuation plan for that specific student or someone. Do you have something to comment on that?
Well, there's a evacuation chair now available, and we put them in the stairwells.
Great, an evacuation chair that you can get. Great.
At our facility, all of the buildings have safe zones at the top of stairwells with calls to emergency. So in case of fire, a person in a wheelchair goes in there, calls security and says, I'm at the top of the stairs in this building. And when the fire department takes it, it's up to the rest of it.
Great. Any other solutions to that? That's kind of what we do when we have the kids in the summertime in the dormitories. We also, but this is just kind of tailored to our particular program, we also give them a help sign to put in a window. And I think it mainly gives them more feeling of security with a stick-em on it. And so they did get stuck in a room somewhere and they can't see their way out, but they think they're safer staying there. Of course, we always encourage them to have a cell phone too, but to put that up on the window just as an extra precaution. When we go, we take a lot of kids with disabilities around campus, and sometimes we're in the dorms or whatever. One of the things we give them is these whistles. Have you ever seen these whistles that are for, I think they were designed by the Navy or something. They're for rescue, search and rescue. They're really loud. And for our kids who have mobility issues, we encourage them to have that whistle with them so that they can get somebody's attention. Kind of another thing as far as safety. I carry one around too, by the way.
Just to show you what the process is like when we first started this evacuation, our facilities manager said that we would just make sure that all of the students with disabilities only had rooms on the first floor of the dorms. I said, what if they want to visit a friend who lives upstairs?
That's right. That's right.
You're going to say, no, you can't go upstairs?
Yeah. And what if mom uses a wheelchair? She's just visiting, you know. And so, yeah, so there's a lot of issues on that. In publications and information technology, to make sure that they're reachable from standing or seated position. Publications in multiple formats, images and content welcoming and understandable. Kind of talked about signs a little bit. I put this description of the sign over on the right-hand side of the screen, only that they're just all kinds of details that you look at when you're developing a tactile sign that you put on it.